Hello everybody, welcome to 1v1 Boss Rush Games Show, celebrating our friends and their creativity. I am your host this week, Corey Derrick, and joining me is the awesome and very talented and amazing Celeste Roberts.
Hey, how are you guys doing? How are you doing, Corey?
I'm great. This is awesome. You know, you were on our Nintendo show. You're kind of gonna make semi-regular appearances when you can on that show, which is very exciting. But for those who don't listen to that show, maybe listen to some of our other ones, you do a lot of cool things. You're a blog editor at Another Zelda Podcast. You are a technical writer, which is, kind of selfishly why I wanted to do this with you. And you do a lot of cool things, and I want to know about them. So just before we kind of get rolling here, tell people who you are. What do you do? What does it mean to be a technical writer? And what do you do over at the Another Zelda Podcast?
All right. Well, I graduated with an English degree. My concentration is in creative writing. And you can imagine the questions I got when I told people what I was majoring in. What are you going to do with that? Just really me.
As someone who majored in art, I got that question a lot. So
you understand, and they're both very useful. They're just not as clear cut because the pathways are very open. Mm-hmm. You can do whatever you want. So before I became a technical writer, I taught English in Japan for 6 months. Actually.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
I think that would be hard to do after you've been in a career for a little while. So that's something I wanted to do as soon as possible, early 20s, not too long after graduating. And I enjoyed that. It was probably the hardest job I've ever had because I taught different age groups. I'm talking from babies to adults. So 1 hour you're teaching fifth graders, next hour you might be teaching a little toddler. So you have to switch gears.
Yeah.
For that. And then when I returned home, I just started applying for anything I could find, anything you can imagine. And I applied at my current job. They actually did not have a listing. I was just bold, and I sent in applications to local companies, and they saw my portfolio, and they said, oh, we actually do need someone who can write our proposals and things, and I've been with them for 7 years.
That's awesome. I want to kind of revisit this Japan subject for a couple minutes. How did you? I mean, what made you want to go to Japan and teach English? Like, I have so many questions. I don't really know where to start. So, like, what made you want to go to Japan to teach English? Is that just something you kind of always kind of wanted to do? Is that just something that sounded interesting at the time? Like, how did you get to Japan from here? Besides like a plane.
No, yeah.
I swam.
I was in the Olympics. Didn't you catch that in 2010? No. I got whiff of it from, I don't know if it was a professor or a classmate, that one of the English instructors had done that. So I sat with him in his office and he just told me all about his experience. He actually met his wife over there. And I thought, oh, that's something I want to do after I graduate. So I looked for application deadlines after I graduated in May 2011, just kept applying. There are different companies. There's also the JET program, which allows you to teach with the public schools over there. But what I ended up working for a company that's called an Akaiwa, where it's a secondary English school. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I'm not. Please explain.
Okay.
I want to.
Okay.
Get as nitty gritty as you want to with this. I'm fascinated already.
So my company offers supplementary English. So in addition to going to school during the day, the kids and, as I said, babies and adults, if they want to actually speak with a native English speaker, you can pay to attend classes and have lessons. So I did that for 6 months. I just wanted to go. I was really determined. I mean, if it hadn't worked out, you just deal with what you can and maybe keep applying to another company. But I lived in an apartment. I paid bills. I made friends. I got to go to Tokyo Disney That was pretty cool. Disney
That's cool.
Sea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As someone who is a big fan of Disney World, that was like our big family vacation every year when I was little.
Wow.
Yeah, and I actually just went back right before all this Corona stuff hit with my dad. We just took a trip, me and him, down there, and at the end of February, and it was awesome. But as somebody who's a huge fan of like Disney parks and Imagineering and stuff in general, I've always heard that Disney Sea is the best Disney theme park in the world. Like it from an Imagineering standpoint, from a construction standpoint, and just a technologically more advanced park than anything else. So
it was beautiful. Disney Sea, it kind of looked like a Mediterranean style. You've probably looked up pictures of it. It kind of looks like a harbor town.
Yeah.
And hearing Mickey Mouse speak Japanese is adorable.
Is it?
It's amusing because I can't understand what he's saying. So.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a really good documentary on Disney Plus, the Imagineering story. It's 6 or 7 episodes. They kind of just go through how, they design the rides in the parks and stuff, and kind of the ups and downs of the history of the theme parks. And the Tokyo Disney stuff was actually a really big win for them. And so there's actually a whole episode on the non-US based parks, like Disneyland Paris and Tokyo Disney, and then the China parks too. But the Tokyo Disney, the way they designed it, just kind of around the water and stuff, was so it was fascinating to watch. So
I hope you get to go. I think you'd really enjoy it.
I would like to one day. It's going to be a while before I can do that. Well, before we can do anything, it seems like. But but yeah, it's listening to you talk about hearing those characters speak Japanese, like being a teacher over there. How did you kind of but did you have to learn Japanese? Like, do you know a little bit of Japanese? Did you?
I know like konnichiwa, sayonara, gomen nasai, very basic. So I applied in March, interviewed in April. I was in Tottori, Japan in June. So it was very fast paced getting packed up, but they learn English in their schools, and the Japanese workers at my school, that branch, they all were fluent in English. What I think they were doing, I never sat in one of their classes, I think they were explaining grammar. They were also speaking English, but I think they were able to switch back to Japanese to help it make sense to the students. Whereas for me, with us, you were getting pure immersion, which was kind of cool, especially with my high school students, because they would ask me things about American culture, like, do you know President Obama? No, I don't. Not personally, because this was in 2012, and what's it like dating in the U.S.? Those were the best. Even if we didn't follow the book, they're still learning something. You are learning conversation skills. You are learning about American culture. My name is Celeste Roberts, and my name tag had the characters, and one of my little 5-year-old students was reading it like Celeste Roberto, and I said, "Oh yes, I'm a robot," and I started doing a little robot dance, and you would have thought I was David Chappelle. Wow. That was so cute. So cute. Don't get me wrong, that they were very, very well disciplined. The parents take big interest in their progress, but I did have some kids here and there, few and far between, who were rascals, just like here in the U.S. I mean, kids are kids with energy, and you might be familiar with this, and I'm sure some of the listeners have heard of conchoing, where they try to touch each other's butt. One of the 5-year-olds came up to me in the front and tried to do that. Oh. It was not comfortable at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine so.
No, it was. I immediately got the manager and had her come talk to him in stern Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds not like a pleasant experience.
But I did get to go on vacation for a week while I was there, and I went to Tokyo, and well, obviously for the Disney Sea, but my friend who had been teaching there, she made sure we went to the Biohazard Cafe, which is the Resident Evil Cafe. They call it Biohazard over there, as many people know. And so it was, imagine these scantily clad Japanese women with like star shirts and their midriff is showing and they're wearing short shorts. And Spice Girls is playing in the background. Hanson is playing in the background.
Sounds about right, because I think like the first 3 or 4 games take place in the 90s, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, that makes sense, because I was just like, whoa, they're a little behind.
I mean, unless like Japanese culture has a real obsession with like the Spice Girls, which I wouldn't really put it past them, but I mean... that was just
that was really cool.
Trying to survive Resident Evil while listening to some Bop would be an interesting way to play that game.
It would be like Zombieland kind of, but yeah, that was an experience. I stayed for 6 months instead of a year. There was a family medical emergency back home, and so I cut my contract short. But if anybody has questions about it, I'd be happy to like privately message you about it, answer what I can. I have a blog. I want to make sure it's still up, but I was kind of journaling things for my own benefit to look back on, but also people who are moving, things to pack, things that are available in Japan, culture shock stuff.
Yeah, cool. That's really cool. When you retweeted when I was asking for questions and you said we were going to talk about Japan, I'm like, yes, this is cool. So, I'm always interested when people go to other places, especially something, for people that found this show somehow without knowing who we are, this is kind of like a gaming focused website, and a lot of gaming stuff originated in Japan, and it's always fun to learn about the culture in which the things you're interested in came from. And even if it doesn't have to do with games in general, like, teaching someone English in Japan is always a fascinating thing too. It's just, that's so cool that you got to do that. Kind of jealous of that, actually.
It's not too late. Maybe when your little girl's grown up, if you want to take a little excursion, live there for a little while. And you don't have to have an English degree, at least with the company I was with. You just have to be a native English speaker, have at least a bachelor's, and have a good grasp of grammar and spelling and punctuation, things like that. So
it's cool.
Don't be deterred.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of move along here. You're a writer, right? So I imagine that kind of started as a hobby for you, but before we get into the writing stuff, like, what else do you like to do? We met because of the Another Zelda podcast, kind of refollow, kind of moving back and forth between there, and obviously you are a big Zelda fan, but what do you like to do in your free time when you're not writing proposals or crossing T's and dotting the I's, so to speak?
I like to sleep. Well, I'm just kidding. That's always nice. But I love to cook. I love to bake. I'm not like a professional cook or professional baker. Please don't message me asking me to make a wedding cake or anything. That.
Ed might message you to make him something delicious, judging by the last few conversations I kind of came in on. So.
Yes, my grandma could make him some homemade gumbo if he's interested. If you're interested too, it doesn't have to be seafood. I know you said you're not a big seafood person. We can fix you up some sausage and chicken. Jambalaya gumbo.
I can do some seafood. I like shrimp. I like some fish, which is better than I used to be, because I used to live by the saying, if it comes from the sea, it does not go in me. And so I've expanded my palate a little bit as I've gotten older, but also I still have the taste buds of a 12-year-old child. So,
Hey, you like what you like.
it's true. I'm I'm an adult man. I can eat what I want, right? I mean,
Yes, you pay your taxes, you paid your dues.
right. That Taco Bell drive-thru is open late. But yeah. So what do you like to cook? I mean, that's something that I worked professionally at for 14 years.
Oh,
I was well, I wasn't a chef. I was the kitchen manager for a restaurant around here, and it was something that paid the bills, and it was good while it lasted. But as something I wanted to do more, and so kind of got out of that. But I'm always interested in hearing people say they like to cook, because it's something that I just kind of took for granted for such a long time. So
yeah, I could see if you were doing that for 14 years to pay the bills, that definitely puts it in a different perspective. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I've gotten around to cooking regularly. I mean, my wife cooks a lot, but when I do cook, I do like to try to do something different. But what's your favorite thing to cook?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I'm very big on Pinterest. Your wife might be the same way if she's looking for new recipes, because sometimes you have a brain freeze. Oh my gosh, do I feel like baking chicken again? Do I feel like making spaghetti again? I love to look on Pinterest. I also follow some accounts on Instagram to get some inspiration. I just like to try new things. I really like chicken enchilada casserole. I like butter baked chicken. I like fish.
Chicken enchilada.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to send you that recipe if you don't have it.
You should send it to me, please.
If I forget, you just message me and say chicken enchilada.
Yeah.
Casserole. I'll know exactly what you're talking about. I've really gotten into baking over the Christmas holidays. I had my little godson come over, and we made homemade from scratch gingerbread cookies. And when he was using the rolling pin, you would have thought he just won the lottery. He said, "Ceci," that's his nickname for me, "I'm a professional chef." Using the rolling pin. It was so cute. So I like baking banana bread. I think when you're younger and ingredients are intimidating because they seem so expensive, when you have to get so much you might not use often, it's a lot. It's a big expense.
Yeah.
But now that I'm using flour, sugar, powdered sugar, brown sugar, whatever, those are pantry staples. I'm older now, so I have a little bit more income than I did when I was 18.
Right.
So it's more enjoyable now, and I think you might be able to attest to this, having worked in the restaurant industry. I do like going out to eat. My boyfriend Timmy and I love to travel whenever we can, and we love to just stumble upon restaurants. Like, oh, that looks different. That looks unique, especially like in New York. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's prime destination for every culture you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And we live an hour away from New Orleans, so we try to get a new restaurant in once a month or every few months. We have some favorites that we just can't stop revisiting. But I think there's so many dishes that you can make at home that you can make even better with your own unique touch. I mean, I don't know. What do you think from your experience working in a restaurant?
I've definitely taken some liberties and adding and, changing some ingredients to make something more to the things that at least for me, that I like to eat. But sometimes my wife is like, don't do that. And I'm like, it's so good. Because I mean, everybody has different preferences and stuff. I like stuff a little bit more on the spicy side, a little bit more on the hot side, and she's a little bit more conservative when it comes to that stuff. But she experiments too, right? She's her family is Ukrainian and Jewish, so they have like this whole separate palette of food that I've never even thought about eating before in my life. And I mean, some things I like from there and some things I don't, but it's kind of a give and take and figure out what you like. And they do a great job of kind of like understanding that I don't really care for everything that they cook, so they kind of, it's kind of nice when they're like, hey, we're doing this, do you want something different? It's kind of nice that they
that's
take
really
that.
considerate.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff though that they make that I never had before, and it's very good, very, very good. Her mom makes these meat and kind of spinach and cheese pastry things. They're just kind of like pastry pockets with like meat and cheese and spinach inside of it, or like a combination of the ingredients, and it's really good. It's like a savory and sweet type taste, and it's really different and really good. And I never thought I would kind of enjoy something like that, but it's really good. So
that sounds amazing.
It is.
All my favorite things in one.
Yeah. So it's cooking is an interesting art that is tough to master for sure. So
I don't know if I could do it for money. I feel I would feel too much pressure.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. Luckily, where I worked, it wasn't that interesting of a palette, right? I mean, we had a lot to do, but it was more like steaks and chicken and burgers and stuff like that, and not nothing too fancy. So
sometimes I get a craving for a good old cheeseburger though, and fries and a milkshake. Just
yeah.
Yes,
there's a lot of those places around here. The area where I live actually is there's a place called Swenson's that my wife loves. It's just like this locally owned chain. There's probably like maybe 10 of them in the area, and once in a while my wife will just get a craving for it, and it's just this greasy cheeseburger with their special sauce on it and some fries, and just sometimes that's all you need.
Swenson's, do they serve ice cream?
They do. They have ice cream and milkshakes, and it's one of those kind of old school drive up in your car and roll down your window and order places.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if you know what Sonic is or anything. I don't know.
Big fan of Sonic. We have one.
it's like the home version of that. Like, it's just like a homegrown version of Sonic. So yeah.
Oh man. Because there was a Swenson's in New Orleans, or right outside of New Orleans, that was an ice cream parlor. I think that was its name when I was a kid. So I was wondering if that was the same chain.
I don't know. I don't know if they've expanded past this area or not, to be honest with you. I never really looked into it, but it is a local favorite, I will say. So, but other than cooking, what else do you like to do? What else do you do in your free time? I'm sure.
Timmy and I, whenever the world is normal, we like to go thrift shopping, flea markets, look for that kind of stuff. He likes finding old gaming systems, and if they're in disrepair, he likes to tinker with them, and sometimes he'll sell them or he'll keep them for himself. I like to watch a lot of makeup people on YouTube. I find that pretty relaxing. I don't do anything super artistic like special effects, but that's kind of my me time in the morning, because like you, I have to get up like at 5:20, and that's my piece of the day before I go to work. So it's a little self-care, a little pampering, and I like learning about the different products. I like to listen to a lot of podcasts. The Beauty Brains is a podcast with two cosmetic chemists who answer questions about beauty products, but they do use scientific terms, but they break it down to layman's terms, explaining maybe some trends that are not safe for you, what ingredients to look out for. Are you paying too much for that $20 bottle of shampoo? Could the $5 one do the same trick, especially if the same company is making it? So I'm always fascinated by the marketing aspects. Do you like to just look at how a product is packaged sometimes and think about the script on it, how they worded things, why they named it that?
Yeah, and
what feelings are they trying to evoke?
Yeah, when I was in school, I took some marketing classes, so I know all about how packaging and advertising, like how important it is to catch catch the eye of the consumer. You know, it's and then you just think about like how much money they spend on this packet, like getting this packaging ready alone. Like you could have someone, like some celebrity on the front, you know, with their hair kind of like whipping around, you know, one of these things, and it's just like, why? Like, you know, and when you look at the quote unquote generic brand, it's way cheaper, and it pretty much, you know, kind of does the same thing. Now, I'm not trying to say that some like brand name products aren't better, right? But sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles with those sometimes. And
oh yeah, and I'm not sure how much you know about makeup or interested in that.
I know very little about makeup, but I'm sure if my wife listens to this show, this will be something she pays attention to.
Well, just a lot of the big name brands own the same counter brands you see at department stores. They have sister labels at drugstores, and the drugstores really stepped up its game. So, so it's like cars, for instance. Some people drive a certain brand of car because it makes them feel like they have more money, I guess.
Yeah.
But
no, I know about that because I work at a car dealership. I work at a Chevrolet dealership, and obviously they have, you know, Chevrolet and GM is the big brand, and then, you know, Cadillac is the prestige brand, and then Buick is kind of like the more upper middle brand, and then Chevy's kind of like the basic brand. So like I'm sure it's that way across the board with not just cosmetics either, but, you know, food and all these other things too.
Another hobby is I really like watching Frasier and the Golden Girls, and if you've ever seen Frasier, he's so sophisticated. He tries to enjoy the finer things in life, and it just cracks me up how he and his brother are. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the episode where his dad wants to go to like a little steakhouse that's the equivalent of like a Golden Corral, or like a Texas Roadhouse.
No,
yeah, and they.
I haven't watched too much Frasier, but I do watch the Golden Girls from time to time, and you had that shirt on the first time I met you, the Golden Girls shirt. It was cool. Like, I was like, yes, you're allowed to stay. You can stay.
Oh, thank you. I listened to a Golden Girls podcast called Out on the Lanai, and it's just hilarious. What I think is really cool is, because that show was made in the mid 80s, early 90s, there are probably a lot of jokes where they name certain people, certain celebrities, certain political figures, where the joke might go over our heads. And the host of this podcast explained the significance of that remark. What was going on at the time? Why is this? So I really appreciate that whenever someone can give historical context, because I don't know who this presidential candidate was in 1987, and why is this funny? I appreciate that too, because like at the time those were probably like really smart jokes, and you know, as time passes and people don't know, or they just don't really learn who these people are, you know, I watch a ton of things that I don't know the references they're making, you know, and that's cool that they kind of explain that, you know, because it probably makes the joke that much funnier if you're like, that guy, I know him. Yes. You know? And you and I talked about this, where we both like The Office and Parks and Rec. So those are two shows that I could put on in the background and just really enjoy them.
Yeah.
They're so funny.
Yeah, those are shows that you can just... I've probably seen, in some way, shape, or form, I've probably seen every episode of The Office like 3 or 4 times at least. Just from it being on TV, reruns, whatever. My wife and I just probably about 2 years ago, I want to say. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago, because it was that and Mad Men were the last 2 shows we watched before my kid was born. And we watched Parks and Rec from the beginning to the end. And it was... I had never watched Parks and Rec until then. And I was like, man, this show, I think I almost like it better than The Office in some ways.
It's so funny. It doesn't have as many serious moments as The Office.
No,
does.
But I kind of like that to an extent. You know, I like the way Leslie and Ron's relationship kind of becomes what it becomes, and obviously April and Andy, like that's a fun,
man,
that's just such a fun relationship.
I am trying to convince Timmy to dress up like Burt Macklin, and I want to be Janet Snakel for Halloween.
That's funny you say that, because last Halloween, my wife and I went as Jim and Pam for Halloween to her friend's party, and they dressed up as Burt Macklin, and yeah, it was awesome. So
that's so funny.
Yeah.
And Bob's Burgers, I think I mentioned that to you. That is a show I absolutely love. I don't know if you've gotten to the episode where Bob lets Tina drive in the parking lot.
Haven't gotten there
yet. I don't want to spoil it.
I'll get there at some point. I'll get there eventually. It's that show's becoming my I'm gonna fall asleep while this is on show.
It's a soothing show. But when you have to let me know when you get to that episode where he lets her drive in the parking lot, because I think I cried laughing the first time I saw that episode. Just like when Stanley, I think it's called Stress Relief, where he has a heart attack because Dwight sets things on fire in the office, and Angela throws her cat and says, "I weigh only 82 pounds," or something. I had to pause it on Netflix, The Office.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that episode.
Yeah. Are you listening to their Office podcast, by the way?
I am. I was listening to the grief support today, the latest episode. Are you listening to The Office ladies as well?
It's on my feed. I'm very behind. I listened to like the first 3 episodes, and I just haven't had the time to go back. But I do want to listen to it because I love The Office. I do plan on listening to the whole thing. It's kind of like one of those things where I will probably listen to a whole bunch in a row just to catch up at one point.
Yeah. That's what happens, especially when you discover a podcast way after its inception. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll play and catch up.
Yeah, like Dax Shepard's podcast I listen to once in a while. It's called Armchair Expert, where he kind of some of them are just his friends and stuff, but it's other actors or other celebrities and stuff, or just people in general. He brings them on to talk about anxiety and all these other things. And my wife actually brought it to my attention, and I had probably listened to 5 or 6 episodes in a row when I first found it. But that's also a show that I kind of pick and choose which people I want to listen to.
Oh, okay. So he interviews people. Is it kind of like a Joe Rogan type, where he gets different experts on different things?
Sometimes it's more just getting other celebrities to talk about things that they're kind of going through that people don't really see, like anxiety or Dax Shepard was he used to do a lot of drugs and drink and stuff, and now he's been sober for like 7 or probably like 10 years now or something. So he talks a lot about that and things that he went through and how he still kind of struggles with it. It's just kind of one of those podcasts, but it's really interesting to listen to other people talk about stuff like that. It's kind of weird how not weird, but it's interesting to hear that people are opening up about kind of their mental health and kind of things that they go through, and it's kind of uplifting in a way, because if people are going through the similar things, people that they look up to are going through the same things. So
that's very true, especially with celebrities, because they seem to have it all. We think that they're in these beautiful castles practically without anything to worry about, but this poetry is a passion of mine, and you might be familiar with this poem by, I can't remember the poet's name, but it's called Richard Cory. Are you familiar with Richard Cory?
I think, yeah, it rings a bell. I think we went over it in a creative writing class I was in. I don't remember what it is though, so you're gonna have to refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's one of my favorite poems. Just when you were describing what celebrities go through and they're being open about their struggles. It's a poem about this man named Richard Cory who people in the town admire. He seems to have everything. He's wealthy, he's handsome, he dresses well, has a nice house, and everybody else is struggling. So they just see the superficial side of him. And the poem ends with him committing suicide. Oh. Apparently he's not a happy person.
Yeah.
he has all these things that people seem to envy, but if you're not happy, money cannot buy that.
Yeah. So that's I now that you're talking about it, I do remember that. Because during that process we were learning about kind of how to, in that class it was about character development and stuff in short stories, just how to kind of get a character's kind of a view on a character in a short story type way, and we were kind of going over poems and stuff, and we were talking about how do you find a character's almost like a dark side to the character that maybe other characters within that world don't understand or see, and that was a poem that came up. So
that's really cool.
So that was a really interesting class about character building. I kind of miss those classes. It's been so long since I've really kind of learned anything like that. There's real things happening out there.
Oh yeah, and I think that's why literature is so important. I'm very much against banning literature. Like, people want to take out Huck Finn, they want to take out To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'm thinking, how are you going to understand what's wrong if you're not exposed to it? I don't know if you've ever read The Giver.
I love The Giver.
Back in the day.
That's one of my favorite books of all time.
Yes. So I have a story for you. I met this lady who brought her son to dinner with some friends of mine, like 10, 11 years ago. And she was a very much a helicopter parent. Like, she had to read. I think her son struggled with school, so she would help him by reading the books ahead of time. Well, she had a problem with The Giver and went to the school board to try to have it banned because she said it was promoting communism.
Okay.
So I said, okay, well, I understand how you get that link about communism, because everybody's assigned their task based on what the governing body feels their abilities are. But did you read it through to the end where, spoiler alert, whoever's listening, the young guy Jonas, I think his name is, he realizes what is wrong with all of this, what's having this kind of lifestyle, and that's the whole point of the book, where he escapes for freedom. And she's like, I don't care, I don't want my son exposed to any kind of other ideals. And all I could think was, this poor child, I hope wherever he is today, I hope he has left the house, I hope he has done something crazy that would upset his mother.
I remember when I was in high school, we read The Giver, and we read 1984 kind of like back to back, and let's just say I grew up in a community that had a lot of issues with those books as well. I grew up in a predominantly Mennonite community.
It's kind of like Calvinist.
It's kind of like well, we used to say Amish with technology, but there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot more to that, but that's, that's like the easiest way to sum it up is Amish with technology. So there's a lot of, you could see how the Giver would gives some people like that some issues, especially the Orthodox ones that weren't kind of open to anything. But I kind of grew up in a
funny.
I kind of grew up in a place where like everybody had the same 6 last names.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like
really, yeah.
It's like Yoder, Miller, Slaybaugh, the Summers, those kind of names were just everywhere. So, but yeah.
Are you sure we're not from the same place? Because we have that issue, not issue, but commonality.
Yeah,
down here.
I mean, we could be. I don't know. So I'm not trying to like talk bad about that group of people or anything. It's just when people believe what they want to believe and don't have an open mind is kind of always been a weird thing to me, at least. So, but yeah, that's wow. That this episode took a kind of a cool tangent this way.
Yeah, I live in southern Louisiana, and if you ever get to come down here, it's very different from northern Louisiana. When you were talking about Mennonites, so southern Louisiana is predominantly Catholic, which it's a unique brand of Catholicism because we have so much French influence with the food, the culture, Mardi Gras. I mean, we're a melting pot with Spanish influence, Haitian influence, African influence. So it's very laissez-faire. Let it go. Let it be whatever it's going to be. I mean, do you have drive-through daiquiri shops?
Daiquiri, no. Beer, yes.
Okay, so do they have the thing where you have to leave the piece of tape on the cup if you're driving?
No. But it's more of a thing is like, if you get it, you better be driving home or to the destination you know, your destination, because if you get caught with this open, you're not going to your destination. So
yeah, like you cannot drink and drive down here either. Like if you go to the drive-through daiquiri shop, if you get pulled over, that piece of tape better be over the straw hole. It better not be punctured, because like you said, you are not going home. You're not going to your intended destination. It's and then they have, you know, Mardi Gras and stuff. So people are pretty live and let live down here. So I mean, you know how it is. It depends. Where there are open-minded people and then there are closed-minded people. It's everywhere.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just it's so weird how different parts of the world you can find commonalities, and then you can find something totally just different than anything you ever. Because like when I met my wife, one of the first places we went to was New York City, and her and her sister loved New York City. I had never been there until we were together, and it was so different from even like the biggest city by me is Cleveland, Ohio, and even going up there, I was like, man, this is like, I don't know. I guess I'm just not like a city person. Like I can deal with like smaller cities, like the one that I'm in. I like it, but like when it comes to driving in a city, I'm like, you're driving, wife. You are.
Our public transportation better be amazing.
Yeah. So, but when we went to New York and stuff, like you said, talking about our restaurant conversation earlier, and just finding places, holes in the wall, and you know, even the pizza places up there is just, there's so many different things and so many different flavors of people and culture and food. Just even you turn left down the street, you're in a different, it's like you're in a whole different city, you know. It's cool. So, and I'm sure New Orleans is like that too.
It's, you can drive in it. That's a bit different.
Yeah.
It's just watch out for the potholes.
Yeah, well, when if you live up here in February or March when the snow clears and the salt eats the road, it's pretty.
Oh no!
Yeah,
so
it's
you
pretty,
understand.
Yep.
You understand the pain.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They repave the roads up here about every two or 3 years. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty bumpy up here. But we're gonna kind of change course here. We're gonna talk about just a little bit of your work at Another Zelda Podcast blog, and then get into the writing stuff in particular. So you are an editor over at Another Zelda Podcast blogs. How did you get into that, and what is that like? What is your job there? Like, how do you go about? Like, do you edit other people's stuff? I know you write also, but do people have to like submit their work to you and then you post it for them after you kind of edit it or stuff like that? Like, how do you go about doing that aspect?
So, so you want me to circle back to how I even got involved?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start at the top.
Okay. I had mentioned before that I think in the first Nintendo Pow podcast that was looking for something to listen to. I just discovered podcasts around like 2017, and I just typed in Zelda, or their Zelda podcast, and that was around the time David Geisler and Kate May were making Another Zelda Podcast. So I started listening to it. I would comment on their posts on social media, just became good friends. And I had a question for David. So he had friended me on Facebook. So I messaged him a question and I just started talking about how I like writing. And he said, oh, would you like to write? We want to start blogs in 2019. So here I am writing about Zelda. Pretty much anything is a go. David's like, whatever you guys want to write about. I don't want to say it tries to be super family friendly or anything, but there's no erotic fan fiction really on that website. Sorry to disappoint anybody.
If you're looking for that, this is not the place. I'm sure it exists out there, but it's not here.
No. I don't know. I haven't really received any submittals of that from our blog team. So if it ever comes up, I'll just ask David, hey, do you want to just put like a little disclaimer or something? I don't know. But yeah, to answer your question about the submittal process, Shane Kelly, Carlos Gomez, MJ Kuhn, her husband Ryan Kuhn, and soon to be Dan McCoy they are contributing writers as well. And Lizzie Nielsen has contributed some articles whenever she can. So they'll upload them to the shared Google folder and let me know. And they submit images that they think would go well with the article so that I can create a link to the image on our website. And so I look through it. If I have any questions like, oh, this statement is a little unclear, could you maybe elaborate on this? Or I'll fix grammar, punctuation, whatever, a second pair of eyes. Mm-hmm. And then I schedule it to be published. Once we have an article once a month with a few bonus ones every now and then.
Cool. Yeah, I honestly just a couple weeks ago when all this following and refollowing stuff happened, like I had just started listening to it and I've listened to probably 10 or 12 episodes at this point.
Oh wow!
Which is funny because I listened to the latest episode, which was the quiz show episode as of this recording, and MJ and I were talking about it when we recorded our episode, and she was like, I was kind of embarrassed because I didn't know a lot of those questions. I'm like, don't worry, I'm a big Zelda fan. I knew maybe half of those questions. So
they were hard.
Yeah, there's some hard ones on there. So I feel everybody's pain who, maybe didn't know the answer. Of course, Eddie V, my co-host on Nintendo Pow Block, was probably like screaming the answer before the question was even finished read. He's he knows, but we give him a hard time because he's a obsessive Nintendo fanboy, but we love him. So
oh, he's so sweet. He's so passionate. I want his energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I keep him around, because he's the energy and the hype and the dreamer, and I kind of keep everybody grounded from that. I think that's kind of the dynamic we've formed over the last 5 years. So, but yeah, I love Ed to death. He's he's one of my best friends, and I wouldn't be doing this without him. So, but yeah, so you said you were into Zelda and you were looking for Zelda podcasts to listen to, and this is how you got involved with them. What's your history with Zelda? I mean, have you played every game? What are your favorite games? I guess I'll ask, what was your first Zelda game? I guess would be the proper start of this.
Well, to take on the Golden Girls, picture it, Louisiana in 1996 or so, 95, I don't know what year it was. Do you remember Movie Gallery?
Movie Gallery.
It was like a Blockbuster.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, there was a few up here. We were more Blockbuster and Hollywood Video up here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was one or two movie galleries around here.
Yeah, my family would frequent that one. I think it was a little bit cheaper than Blockbuster, and they had the best Super Nintendo selection. Every Friday or every other Friday, it kind of blurs now. It's been over 20 years. My family would go to pick out a game. I think my sisters and I could pick out one or two video games, and my parents would pick out a movie. And one day, my dad was like, "Hey, this is called The Legend of Zelda. It looks like something you would like." And I think I looked at it and I was like, whatever. I wasn't that interested in it at first. I think I was interested more in Super Mario World, something I was more familiar with. And then eventually I did pick it up when we went to movie gallery. And that opening scene in A Link to the Past where the three pieces of the Triforce come together with a little jingle, and then the Master Sword just comes down and the music, the fanfare starts and the castle appears in the background. My mind was blown.
Yeah, and then when you walk out of the house for the first time and you see the rain, yes. the 3D rain is like, that was something that was really fascinating when I first saw the game. To me, that kind of polygonal Triforce and then the rain and then just the effects when I first saw it. I was not fortunate enough to have a Super Nintendo, but my best friend had one. I was a Genesis kid, unfortunately, in the 90s.
They have good games. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, but they're not Nintendo games. But, when I watched him play it, I always thought that was the coolest thing, because Sega didn't really have a lot like that.
It's just the storytelling come to life. Mario, you're supposed to save the princess, and Mario, I love Mario. It's fine. It's a legendary series, but I felt like I was in a virtual storybook the second I played Zelda. Just the music. My goodness.
The music is the music is arguably in a fantastic game. The music is arguably the best part of the game in some instances. So
yes, and I thought, oh my gosh, I get to go into the castle, because in other video games you didn't really get to see the castle unless you were jumping on Koopas and over lava and stuff. But
yeah,
I just, oh my gosh, I get to see the princess this early on. That was my first Zelda game. And because I never owned the Super Nintendo version, I didn't own that game until it was ported on the Game Boy Advance with the Four Swords adventure.
Yeah.
So I didn't beat it until I was like in high school or college, but that was my first Zelda game. And then the next one was Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Man.
My first Zelda game was Link's Awakening on the Game Boy.
Wow.
Yeah, and I loved it. I had no idea what I was doing, because for me, my entire childhood was Mario and the Ninja Turtles NES games and Sonic the Hedgehog and whatever else I could get on Genesis at the time. And I had an NES, played a ton of Mario 1 and 2 and 3 and a lot of the stuff on NES, but I had never played Zelda on the NES. I just never got into it, and I just never. And when you're that young, you get what your parents get you, and you just
you don't have discretionary income as much when you're that.
And I was like, well, I guess I'll play The Adventures of Tom Sawyer for the 30th time. I guess I'll play the Simpsons trivia game, even though I wasn't even into the Simpsons. It was.
Oh man, and a trivia game at that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Don't worry, I got really good at season 1, 2, and 3 Simpsons trivia for never seeing it. But yeah, and my first maybe real Zelda experience was Ocarina of Time. I played a lot of Link's Awakening, but like I said, I never really knew what I was doing. I knew to go to the beach to get the sword, but I never knew Zelda was like about the dungeons and about finding items to complete the dungeons. I would always just kind of walk around and hit enemies with the sword, and I'm like, oh, well, this is fun, but I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm going to go back to Ninja Turtles and smash the A button until everything's dead. But I played Ocarina of Time. And the one infamous story on our Nintendo show is that I beat Majora's Mask before I beat Ocarina of Time, because I I was playing through Ocarina of Time, and I got to the Shadow Temple as adult Link. I wasn't reading, or I wasn't paying attention to something, and I didn't know you had to go back in time to do stuff, and then finish the dungeon there, and then kind of go back to being an adult. I didn't know that, and I got really frustrated. I didn't know what I was doing, and on the same day, but I loved the game. And then when I found out Majora's Mask was coming out, I was like, okay, I'm going to get Majora's Mask. And I ended up getting Majora's Mask, the Majora's Mask strategy guide, and the Ocarina of Time strategy guide all in the same go. And I beat Majora's Mask in a weekend because I was so obsessed with it.
Isn't it great?
I love Majora's Mask. I think Majora's Mask I think it's super underrated. I know kind of revisionist history has kind of come back around on that game, and Wind Waker also, unfortunately. But I was obsessed with Majora's Mask, and I was like, well, I should go back and beat Ocarina of Time. And so I used the strategy guide. I finished the original playthrough I was playing, and then I went back and played the whole game again with the strategy guide and kind of found everything. That strategy guide is in sad shape these days, but...
Mine is too. Spine is not that great.
Spine? You still have a spine? Mine's just pages shoved in this Link-shaped folder that they called a cover. It's just shoved in there. Oh my god,
that's funny. Man, I used to collect those players guides. They were like $15 at the time.
Yep.
God.
I still have most of mine. And then I used to keep them in such pristine condition, except for like my Super Mario 64 one is trashed, and my Ocarina of Time one is trashed because I used it so much. But everything else I kind of just sat on the shelf because as I started collecting them, I started learning like, okay, I want to keep these nice. I don't want these to be shredded like these ones. I want them to be nice. And my cousin spilt a can of Sprite all over them, and all of the pages were stuck together. The covers were stuck together. So yeah, I still have them all, but they are, unfortunately, the sugar from the pop made them all stick together, and it was just kind of like, maybe it was a sad day.
My heart is sinking right now.
Yeah, it was.
Oh man, you're gonna have to go to some thrift shops then.
I know.
See if you can find some.
I know. There's a local game store down the street that sells strategy guides. They're anywhere from like $1 to $12, depending on what the game is and how old they are. But
that's not bad. Then I thought you were gonna say $50.
No, I mean some of the sealed like collector's edition ones are pretty expensive if they're older games, but I'm smart enough to pre-order my Zelda collector's guides and books and stuff. So, what is your favorite game in the series?
Oh man, it's like picking your favorite child.
I'm gonna put the pressure on you. MJ guessed all the right games, so
she guessed all the right games?
Yep, she guessed all the best ones. So, because I asked her what her favorite Zelda games were, and she picked all the same ones that I think are the best ones. So,
oh man, I think Twilight Princess is my favorite one.
Yes. Okay, you can say.
I'm not just saying that because I think you had mentioned that in the previous podcast we were on together. But Twilight Princess, I remember I was a senior in high school when that came out, and I spent a Saturday like in my pajamas, like 12. I just remember 12 hours on that game, on the GameCube version. Yeah. Just Ocarina of Time is so special to me still, and it's a beautiful game. Majora's Mask, excellent game. But something about Twilight Princess, I think it marries the humor of Zelda with those goofy people in that balloon-shaped area at Lake Hylia.
Yeah.
But the tone, the sadness, what Zelda's dealing with. So it's your favorite one as well?
Yeah. Up until Breath of the Wild, I think obviously is a standout amongst the series. It's probably if I was to really rank them, I think Breath of the Wild might edge out Twilight Princess at this point, but Twilight Princess, I think, just it being kind of like you said, that dark tone mixed with the humor and stuff, that dark tone of the story and the characters and stuff mixed with that little glimpse of hope that you see through the darkness, it really that's like my favorite thing in storytelling is that it's things in the world are dark and things are happening that you don't know if you can fix them or not, but there's just that little glimmer of hope and that little kind of guiding light that is Midna, who is the best guiding character in any Zelda game. I just love Twilight Princess so much. It's definitely my favorite in terms of classic Zelda. The 8 dungeon structure and everything. It's the best. Also, I keep a little. I don't know if you can see this, but I keep this on my desk.
Oh, it's like your muse.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, he just kind of sits here.
That was also amazing to me. The fact that you can transform into a freaking wolf. That just.
Yeah. It's
my mind.
I never understood why the gaming community always put down Twilight Princess so much, because of not only the wolf stuff, but like they say that beginning is uninteresting and slow and everything. I'm just like, it's not that bad, guys. It's not. There's worse. I mean, did you play Skyward Sword? The beginning of the Skyward Sword. I'm probably. Let me know if this is your opinion. So Skyward Sword it's a beautiful game. It's like a watercolor impressionist painting. The music is nice. I love the forest area when you're underwater swimming. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I cannot stand the Wii motion controls for it. Yes.
Okay, it's cool. It is innovative for about 5 minutes.
That game,
and then
that game should have been the game. That game should have been the game that came out when the Wii came out, when those controls were still novel and still fresh and fun. By the time the Wii had like kind of run its course, probably 2 years prior to that, and everybody had kind of moved on. That was it was a struggle. I did not finish Skyward Sword. I loved the story where it was going. Like I loved the just because it was just so opposite of Twilight Princess, right? It was celebrating Link and Zelda's friendship through all these years, and just the bright colors and the watercolor aesthetic. And as you got closer to the assets, it morphed from a watercolor painting into the what the object was really supposed to look like, and it was really cool the art direction they took that game. It was just the motion controls. If I don't want every enemy I fight, I don't want to solve a puzzle for. Like that was the big kind of turn off for me for that game.
Did you get to the pirate guy in the desert, the pirate boss fight?
Yeah, I think that's where I stopped. I think honestly,
I had to get my then boyfriend at the time to beat it because the motion control, it wasn't calibrating correctly. So I died a bunch of times and I just got so frustrated. I almost quit at that point. Yeah.
Skyward Sword is a frustrating game. Although I hope that whatever these rumors are, that game might be coming to Switch at some point, that they kind of really rework that game and give it just like a traditional Zelda feel, because those motion controls are rough.
I like moving, and I think the Wii is great. I think it's fun to get off your butt and stuff, but some games are just meant to be played like a traditional video game.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Wii and I played the GameCube version of Twilight Princess. That should just really tell you everything. And I had the Wii version. I bought it at launch, and I was like, I can't do these motion controls, so I played Wii Sports instead and waited for the GameCube version, because the GameCube version came out like 2 weeks after the Wii version, I think, and I waited because I hated the motion controls.
Oh, and it's a mirrored image of it, of the GameCube one, aren't they?
Yeah, the Wii U version actually does that also, where if you play the normal version, it's the GameCube version. It's like that flip, and then if you play it on hard mode, it actually flips the entire world into the Wii version. So
wow.
Yeah.
How is the Wii U version worth getting if I can find it?
Yeah, it's definitely they fixed some of the issues that people had, like the one quest where you have to collect like 15 pieces of something. I forget.
The light orbs or something.
Yeah, you only have to collect like 10 of them, and they cut out some of the filler quests and kind of give some of the other quests more to do in a more interesting way. So it's actually kind of the definitive version, I would say, of that game. It's the same with Wind Waker on Wii U also. So yeah, I really like those versions of that game. I still think the Wii U is a great console, just stuck in a children's toy, to be honest. The tablet.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Except for the Amiibo Festival with Animal Crossing. That was a disappointment. Yeah. But the rumor, next year is Zelda's 35th anniversary, and the rumor is they're gonna put Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Switch next year, which would be would be awesome. So it is cool that Wind Waker for the GameCube, you had to use that Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with the Wii U.
Yeah, but I think I thought the tablet did some of that stuff, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
A little bit. I know you could find like messages in bottles.
Yeah, they changed a lot. They changed that aspect of the game though to make it fit for that version though. So I'm not 100% sure, but I loved hooking the Game Boy Advance up to the GameCube. It was like one of my favorite things. I bought a second Game Boy Advance just to do it.
Oh, nice! That was so innovative.
Yeah, it was cool. So, but we're actually gonna move into the main topic here about your writing. You are. We didn't come here to talk about. I mean, we did, but the main reason why you're here is to talk about what you do. You are a technical writer. So, what you said you kind of like write proposals and kind of do that, fix documents and stuff like. Is that kind of all you do? What all does a technical writer do exactly?
So a technical writer can apply to different fields. I work for an erosion control / construction company. So my content will be very different from someone who works for, say, IBM, that kind of stuff. But just in general, you are putting language into digestible terms that someone who's reading the document can understand what you're talking about, correct formatting. So you want to be good with Microsoft Word, which, as people who have worked with Microsoft Word know, there's like an endless list of tricks and background things you can do. I'm learning something new every day, which fortunately Google exists that I can look up something.
Right.
But so my degree is in creative writing, which does come in handy because I'm also a technical writer / marketing specialist where I manage our social media and help with different marketing things, like maybe if local kids want to come learn about what we do, we can have those kinds of things, those kind of community outreach programs. So when I applied for a completely different position, environmental permitting, which I know nothing about. I was applying for jobs.
Right.
And
no, I know that feeling.
You know that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, look, I went to school for graphic design and media stuff, and I'm working in a car dealership, so I'm still trying to just find something. It's tough, especially in the area where I'm at. There's not a lot of like companies really looking for that stuff around here because it's all kind of I think Goodyear is like the biggest company that's based in the area, and it's just tough to find stuff. Even smaller businesses, because if it's not like a big kind of corporation type thing around here, it's small businesses, and a lot of the smaller businesses kind of handle that stuff on their own, and it's really hard to break into that stuff. But I mean, doing this podcasting and stuff, I'm trying to build a portfolio to show off at some point. But yeah, I mean, you didn't know you didn't know anything about what you were applying for, but.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I mean, how did you end up in where you're at now? I mean, did you applied for one job and just got another one? You said kind of.
Yeah, I interviewed with my now boss. He was over environmental services, and he had read my resume, cover letter, and then I had a link to my portfolio with my writings from my university days, from my creative writing classes, and he saw that I could write, and they needed somebody to write proposals because it is a full-time job. I manage and submit probably about 500 proposals a year. I'm the only one there as well. So it's, once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. If some weeks are busier than others, and then we have a slower season, but he talked to the president and a different department manager, and they kind of created the position.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I was very fortunate. So sometimes I go back to my alma mater to talk to the English classes, about the English majors, about what can you do with the English degree, and I just encourage them. I don't care if they don't have something listed on their website. Just apply. Just tell them what your skills are. You never know. They might not even know what they need until they see your resume.
Yeah. I mean, my brother-in-law, he has like a degree in like a medical field. I mean, not like he's not like a doctor or anything, but just to have a piece of paper, and now he works for a bigger company in the area that has nothing to do with medical, right? Like it's
really?
just that one little step that he took pushed him into a position. Now he's doing really well. He's super successful, kind of up for a bigger promotion, and it just took that one step and having the right things on the resume to fill that spot, and he's doing really well with it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Hi, Austin. I know you're watching. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Oh, is this live or pre-recorded?
No. This is we're pre-recording this, but he'll watch it when it goes live. He's
okay.
He watches our stuff because he's a nice guy, and so.
Oh, I'm sure he enjoys it too.
He says he does, so he's nice.
Oh.
No,
sure.
He's great. So, but yeah. So, writing a proposal for things. You said you write 500 a year. What does a proposal look like? And I'm sure there's probably 1,000 different things that you write about for this job. But I mean, writing a proposal. What does that look like, really? So
when I started, I knew zero about erosion control and construction equipment names. Like, what is it? Like, what the heck is a Maruca track hoe? I don't know what that is. So I work with the engineering department. I work with the project managers. I work with the environmental department. And then there's my boss who oversees a lot of stuff. So I learned how to read the design drawings. We cover and protect exposed pipelines, and our company will provide a solution through engineered drawings. So I have to look at those drawings, and I have a very good team of coworkers who are very patient in explaining things to me. This is kind of telling me what to do. And at one time I wrote, "We are going to install this to quell the erosion," and my boss said, "That's a really great word, but I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of these construction guys out in the field are not going to know what quell means." So you kind of dumb it down a little bit for them.
Yeah, that's so
that
that's probably challenging too, because like, not to say anybody's like dumb out there or anything, but like trying to like write something that makes sense for you might not make sense for somebody else, so you kind of have to put yourself in their headspace while you're writing it too. Is that?
Yeah. Like you have to. You're using like my proposal writing will put you to sleep, 100%. Very different from my creative writing. It's not as fun.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine. Unless you like made your proposals little short stories that you could tell about.
Oh, it's also. Like when you think about it, it's also a legal document because there's all this legal language, boilerplate language in the back. They sign. It's a contract basically. Yeah. And it's I have a template in Word that I use, and I look at the survey notes from the surveyors, and if there's any environmental stuff I have to put, I'll put that in and make sure punctuation's right. Everything flows together. And sometimes people will ask me to look at their documents. Hey, can you please edit this? Does this sound okay? And I do the social media posts. That's where I can be a little bit more creative, because you want to make it somewhat interesting. Now we're not like Starbucks or McDonald's where we can have these amazing promotions and be cool with, oh, the McRib is back.
You mean you're not like Arby's and making like little pop culture references out of your French fries or anything?
No, oh man, I wish I could. That would be awesome.
I wonder how much they get paid, and that social media team gets paid to do that, because like they go like way above and beyond what social media really needs to be for something like Arby's.
They are so in touch. They must hire people who are kind of like us and very into that culture.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the timeliness, like when things are released, they have a social media post about it that day, and
yeah,
they're not getting paid enough. That's
like I saw an Arby's ad today on social media that was like, I think it was like an Instagram post from them that was, not that I'm like a huge fan of Arby's, but I do follow them because of the artistic take they take on their social media, and it was a Firefly logo because Last of Us comes out on Friday, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
They know.
Yeah.
No, we're not that cool.
No.
We're not. No, we just, like, if we have a ping pong table in our warehouse, and if people are playing it, like, people on Facebook, especially people's grandmothers and spouses, like to see that kind of stuff on a business page.
Yeah.
You know? But I also will post, I'll use Canva, which is I'm cheating with graphic design out there. I'm not versed in Photoshop, so I use Canva, and I'll do before and after case studies of, here's what the project site looked like, and this is what we did. And I put very simple language in those descriptions. Like, I don't describe the dimensions, the measurements, and people like seeing that kind of stuff. So I can be a little bit more creative there. And I edit the company newsletter every year, things like that. Gosh, I hope I didn't put people to sleep just now.
No, this is really kind of interesting to see like a different aspect of writing, because when you think of somebody whose job is a writer, like I mean, not any like offense to your job or anything, but you think of something like when, you know, the last episode was MJ, and you think about writing stories and character development and stuff. You don't think of, you need a really specific type of writer to do what you do, and that's super interesting to hear that part of something that people don't really think about when you think of writer.
I think what somebody told me when I was interviewing was, I can teach somebody what we do as a company. I cannot teach them how to write. I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to have grammar 101 with somebody.
Right. Yeah.
So I really do enjoy it. I feel needed. I feel necessary, and I think it's really important to know that writing is communications all around us. You can see that in advertisements. You can see that on people's websites, video games, the dialogue. So you can do this and make a living, and you can also, in your free time, have fun. In addition to this, around the same time I started this company, I was freelancing for a local magazine. So I would get to interview people about local events coming up, festivals, new shops opening, museums. There are plantations around here, so I'd get to interview people about the history of the different plantations. So it was, I guess it's like a feature story, basically. Special interest, what's going on, what can you do around here. So I did that for about 3 years. So I got to be a little bit more creative in that aspect, because it didn't read like a newspaper article. You know how those are, they have to be, I think it's like a 5th or 6th grade level where anybody can understand the story. That I got to be a little bit more creative. Talk about the St. Patrick's Day parade. Talk about, oh gosh, there were so many cool people. Talk about snowball stands. There's a local lady who has over 400 flavors. Y'all might call them snow cones over there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She makes video game themed snowballs. She has a Pikachu one, a Hello Kitty one.
Oh wow.
A Ninja Turtles one.
That's cool. That's awesome. So I mean, you kind of explore your creative writing that way, and besides the Zelda blog and stuff, Do you get to explore creative writing in any other ways? Do you do that in your free time sometimes?
I did it. Yeah, like I did it a lot more when I was a teenager. You know how that is when your passions are so intense at that age, and everything is new, and you're on fire.
And that's like that you're so focused on doing that one thing because it's the thing you're passionate about. Yeah, I get it.
Yes, and you have more energy and fewer responsibilities. So I used to write a song or a poem every day when I was in high school, and I still every now and then I'll get an inspiration for a poem. At the end of last year, I was published through Z Publishing. They featured different poets in each state, so I was in the Louisiana anthology. So that was really cool. I submitted some poems, and some former professors reached out to me a few years ago to contribute some academic articles on hip hop. They were publishing a hip hop around the world encyclopedia, so I contributed some academic articles on Kanye West, Mary J. Blige, Tribe Called Quest, and Cold Cut. So I liked that because I got to learn more about those artists and have a lot more respect for that genre of music and those people.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Wow, that's cool. Who's added that list that you just listed? Who is your favorite person to learn about?
Oh man, they were all really cool. I have to say I have a new respect for Kanye West. I know he's such a controversial figure. I don't know him personally,
right.
But just learning his background, like his mom had an English PhD, and he got to live in China for a year as a child because I think she was teaching over there. And I have a new respect for hip hop and his lyrics a lot more. And I like Mary J. Blige as well, and I learned about A Tribe Called Quest because I was assigned that article. That was really cool. And then Cold Cut, they're kind of like 80s, 90s. I don't know if you've heard of them. I don't know if they're doing as much anymore. That was, I think if you get a chance to do research articles in that way, or if you want to write for a local magazine, that is an opportunity I highly recommend anybody take. It is time consuming, it is tiring, but I think everybody has a story. I know that's kind of probably going to answer a future question you might ask.
but still, that's still, like you said, everybody has a story, and it's so I think sometimes people just don't know where to start with it, like, and I know I struggle with that a lot. Or, some people are afraid to tell their story, or not, and kind of intimidated about things. But, I think it's important for people to get their stories out there if they feel like it's something that they want to do. It's fun to learn about what people are into, or what's in their mind that maybe you don't see on the outside, right? Like I'm sure when people, like, just taking me for example, like I'm sure people don't think when they see me, like I'm sure they don't think that I like to write. I like to do certain things that maybe they don't think, because like I played sports in high school. I was always the biggest kid in school. I was always that kind of person that maybe people wouldn't think like, oh well, he likes to write short stories, or wants to be a writer someday, or write poetry, or is in this art class. I took 8 art classes in high school because I loved art.
Oh my god.
Like I loved art
awesome.
So much, and I took art history, and that was always something that I think some people always were surprised when I would say that, because I played sports. That's what people do, and where I grew up, if you're not playing sports, then you're not somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
Which sports did you play?
I played football. I played basketball. I also played some volleyball later in high school. So,
okay, well, you're going to be on my team for the Olympics.
Okay.
Because I can't even dribble a basketball.
Yeah. So I like, as much as I love like playing sports and stuff, like I was always more into the creative stuff that, you know, people didn't really know about me. Like I remember I graduated and one of my friends didn't even know like I could draw, you know, and that was kind of a shock to them because I was, you know, I mean, I was always playing sports. I never really explored that with my friends, you know, and I think that's something that people become more comfortable with once they leave a certain situation where they're more, especially at the time, people didn't really explore their feelings or their interests and stuff because they kind of, you know, it's way more open now where people can, especially, you know, if you're into art or something, you can be proud of it, or, you know, it's just such a different time now. And it's, you know, I kind of wish I would have been more into being open about that kind of stuff when I was younger. But
I think it was hard because I think we're about the same age. Like I'm 31, so I was a teenager in the early
33.
mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that rough and tumble. Not as bad as like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but it was still hard. That's a hard age in general, being a teenager. When I look back, oh my God.
Yeah, it was an interesting time, but you know, it's something that I kind of learned a lot about myself after that age, you know, and kind of took me a while to become who I am now, you know, in a sense, and actually enjoy kind of what I'm proud to be into and stuff. So it was, yeah, it's, I'm glad like I'm doing what I'm doing now, you know, because, you know, when I was younger, you know, if you played video games, you were a nerd. And if you talked about art and, you know, Ninja Turtles and Transformers and Power Rangers and whatever else you were into, right? Like that was a no-no because you're too old to play with that stuff, or you're too old to be into that stuff. And now I'm glad to see that this kind of nerd culture stuff is really kind of thriving in a way. And I've made so many friends just by, you know, being around on the internet now. And you know, not that Twitter and Instagram and Facebook are like the greatest places to be because it's such a dumpster fire of just negativity and stuff. God. But there are a few small pockets that are positive and interesting and exciting. And I've made so many friends doing these shows and meeting people. And that's, I mean, you in particular too, like you're a different voice that, you know, I've been podcasting for 6 or 7 years at this point, and never really had a female voice that you can just kind of be open with, right? And I mean, we have a few female friends that are like that, but like it's not as consistent and as kind of open as, you know, you and I have been the last couple weeks, or even, you know, MJ or one of our other friends that does this kind of stuff too, and you know, we have some streaming friends that are female that have kind of become bigger in the last few weeks that, you know, we're super proud that, you know, maybe 2 years ago that wouldn't have happened because they're female or they're a person of color, or, you know what I mean? It's just kind of this whole kind of accepting thing is just, it's really fun to see. And I'm glad that, you know, through all this negativity that's happening, there's like a positive part of this community that's really opened up.
Oh, absolutely. It's video games are very, very special to me.
Yeah.
Very special.
Yeah. But we actually have a question on Twitter for you, coming from at DCDM99. He writes in, he seems to want to be he's kind of an aspiring writer. It seems like he says, I want to start writing, even for a small blog. I know I have to build a portfolio to present to people, but what does a good portfolio look like for someone who hasn't published anything? Yeah, and then he kind of goes on and says, what's more difficult as a writer, brainstorming, drafting, or edits? So I guess we can kind of go through all that in one swoop.
So I'm looking at his questions on my phone. Hey, DCD, thank you so much for writing in. He he listens to Another Zelda Pod, and we follow each other on Twitter. He was recently on Switchheads talking about Xenoblade, actually.
Oh, cool.
He's a big Xenoblade guy.
I'm a fan of Xenoblade as well, so we are two peas. I'm a big fan.
Oh, you'll have to talk to him about it. He seems very passionate. So for a portfolio, we made ours in my capstone class, one of my final classes as an English major, and we put our best writing. Like, what was your best personal essay? What was your best academic essay? If you were a creative writing major, what are some poems you want to share? What are some short stories, novel excerpts, if you have any? I think the technical writers, business proposals, I didn't take any technical writing classes in college. So I would go on a website. I had talked with him before, actually, like for a Zelda podcast, they use Wix. For work, we use WordPress. And I think you guys use WordPress.
Yeah, we use WordPress as well. Yeah.
So find one that you're comfortable with, unless you know coding and want to build straight up. I would just look through things, even if they're not published, and put them on a website. Put what you feel are your best works. If you have written a newspaper article, put that on there. If you've written for a magazine, put that on there. If you've written some kind of copy for a product, put that on there. Just put your best works on a portfolio. I had used what did we use? Webs. Webs.com is what we used when I was making mine. I need to update it. So I had put my senior research paper, which actually was about video games. I had written about the psychology of video games, the marketing aspects. This was 10 years ago. And how people talk about, do video games cause violence, and how there were no studies with conclusive evidence. There still aren't. So
yeah,
just all the research behind that. And I would just recommend what you feel are some of your strongest pieces and putting them nice little website. You could categorize them by poetry, short stories, professional writing, marketing, copy, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing an art reel and an art portfolio, they always put your best stuff out there, and what we were kind of encouraged to do was like maybe put something in there that's not like your best work, but something that you're proud of, and kind of put it with, and it obviously works different with writing, but we were put something similar that it was kind of like an evolution of this first thing, and like, this is what I started with, and this is how I grew, and this is kind of the end product of what this first one was, and this is how it kind of evolved into this one. So it's writing is hard. It's when people ask me sometimes, even though I don't write as much, nearly as much as I used to or want to, just keep writing. Just write, even if it's something small every day. It's very it's a skill that you can get better at if you just keep writing, and maybe have somebody proofread what you write. Even if it's don't be embarrassed to have somebody read over it, because there's we kind of talked about this before we started recording, or maybe even at the top of the show a little bit. It was like, a second pair of eyes catches mistakes, right? And that you might not see. And it's important to have a second pair of eyes. That's when we have people writing for us, it's always, before it goes up, it's got to have a second pair of eyes on it, because there are grammar mistakes, there are spelling mistakes, there's sometimes there's whole paragraphs that just don't make sense because they run together, and maybe if you're tired, if you've been working on it for hours and you just got the glazed eye look, and you just need some fresh eyes on it, always helps.
We're all human. And when I was at university, I worked in the writing center as a writing tutor for 3 years, and sometimes reading your work out loud or having someone else read it, I don't know how many people have time or do that, but that is when you can catch a lot of mistakes or tone. This doesn't sound exactly like the message I was trying to convey.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, if you read something one day and you love it the next day, like if you come back to it the next day too and you find that you just, what was I thinking? Why did I write this at 1:00 in the morning? And you kind of, you take that idea and kind of rewrite it and rework it, and it becomes 100 times better. So
yeah, you gotta sleep on it sometimes.
Yeah, I sleep on a lot of things a lot of times.
It's yeah. I think that's one of his, kind of related to one of his questions, which process is the most difficult for you, brainstorming, drafting, or edits. They all have their difficulty. I think editing is the easiest because you've done all the hard work. The groundwork is there, the foundation's there, so you just have to make it better. Gosh, I don't know if this answers those exact categories, but disciplining yourself is probably the hardest aspect as a writer. Yeah. I don't write nearly as much as I would like to or should. You should write every day or give yourself one day a week, but even if it's just 500 words a day, I mean, that's what Stephen King and all the writers, and I'm sure MJ has told you, just write something every day.
Yeah, she says sometimes she writes 200 words a day, sometimes it's 1,000, but just getting something on a page every day is really important. So
I don't know if drafting would, or brainstorm. I mean, it depends on where you are. Brainstorming, if you have a stroke of inspiration, it can feel like you could never finish writing. Like you could just go on for eternity. I'm sure you've had that experience before, where the muse is visiting you, she's ready to help you out, and you feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I told you I was talking about it earlier, like during lunch today I was writing some stuff down because I have an hour lunch break for some reason they give me an hour for lunch, so nice. I just sit there and I'm like, you know, between getting ready for the show tonight and, you know, the conversation I had last night, it was just kind of like I've been super inspired to write lately. You know, it's been awesome. So I sat there and was just like writing stuff down, and my lunch went so fast. I'm like, I need another hour. Like I'm kind of like in a trance here, you know, trying to get ideas down. And you know, it was awesome. You know, I posted on Twitter today. I was like, I now have 3 characters that I'm gonna flesh out a little bit. And yeah,
I did see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, I've been wanting to write, like, especially like when my cousin published his book a couple years ago. I was kind of inspired to, like, I want to do something like that. And I've been working on this one thing for probably, I don't know, probably a better part of a decade at this point. Just like this kernel of an idea, and I had a Word doc that was so old that I had to open it in this weird format and copy and paste it into a new Word document because it was that old. It just followed me. It's just followed me from probably 3 computers. Like, it just had to copy and paste it, but it's all still intact. I've reworked some stuff, and I'm like, the things I'm working on the last day and a half or so, I'm just extremely proud of. And not that the things I'm writing are good, because I will go in and like fix mistakes and stuff, but just getting the ideas down on paper or in a notepad, or, you know, honestly, I was writing in my phone's notepad today just to get ideas down, and, you know, I'll transfer it over to a computer later, right? But just writing something every day, even if it's something that you're not ever going to release to the public, is just important, I think.
It is. I think, I guess, I hope that answers your question, DCD, about, I don't know if the discipline part played a role, but that really is the hardest part. Is that the same for you too, Corey? Would you say?
I think, like, brainstorming, coming up with ideas, I think that's not hard for me. Editing is definitely not hard for me if I'm working on somebody else's stuff. You know, I can pick out mistakes and stuff pretty easily, I feel. It's disciplining yourself, like you said, to sit down and actually get a draft done, just sitting down and focusing and getting it out there. I mean, we're talking about writing blogs here, and when I was talking to MJ yesterday, she was writing a whole book. Like, I couldn't even fathom writing as much as she does to it is a goal, right? It is a goal that I now have, but writing a blog and stuff, just sitting down, focusing on an idea and getting 400 to 600 words down and of an idea and kind of putting your feelings into how you feel about this one subject is probably the hardest part, because you have this idea and how do you start it? Once I start and I'm happy with a beginning type thing, then I can keep going, and then I can go back and edit it and fix things later. But it's just starting, disciplining myself to sit there until I start writing is just the hardest thing. Staring at a blank Word doc is the most intimidating thing, I think.
Oh gosh, it is. And it's the way I write now. It's funny because now I don't have as much time. Sure, you have as much time as you make time, right? That's what they say. So it is true. But I feel like my writing is more refined, even though I don't have as much time now. Mm-hmm. And that I had more time when I was a teenager. But I look back at some of my writing and I'm like, these little lovey-dovey scenes between the characters.
I'm sure I thought this was real deep when I was in high school.
Oh, nobody, please, if I pass away, please do not find my journals of poetry. I was very big into Evanescence and Linkin Park. So you can imagine.
I mean, I can relate to
content.
That. I can relate to that. That was the music I listened to as well.
So yeah, it has to be buried with me. No one can read it after I'm gone.
I hope people just start reading journal entries at your funeral. They're just
no funerals allowed. I'm gonna haunt you. No. Oh man, I had some fan fiction as well. No one's allowed to read that either.
I know we are kind of running a little long is kind of an understatement, but I just this last question for aspiring writers, what advice would you give them to kind of inspire them to push through maybe their fear of putting something on a page? People that would love to write, would love to get ideas out there, but like I said, I've been intimidated before to get ideas down, and obviously, our question was about that. So, what is some advice that you would give someone that maybe wants to write and maybe doesn't know where to start or how to, face that fear of writing?
So, they're afraid that people would not want to read the story, or that they might feel kind of silly with it. We're our own worst enemies, and I don't know if it's Toni Morrison or another author who has said, if there's a story you're craving to read and it's not there, it's because you haven't written it yet. So think about all these works of literature. All these people had to overcome those fears. It wasn't an overnight thing, right. The famous story is Stephen King had trashed Carrie, and his wife found it in the wastebasket and read it, and she said, "What are you doing? This is great." Yeah. I mean, the rest is history with him. Even if you don't become like a what is that guy's name? That mystery writer, not Dean Koontz or isn't there like a James something? I am blanking.
I know I'm blanking.
Like a thriller writer.
If only we had a piece of technology to look it up right in front of my face.
Oh my gosh, I won't be able to sleep if I can't think of his name.
I'm gonna look it up.
But I want to say James Brown, but that is the singer.
James Patterson.
James Patterson. Yeah, even if you never become that, or if that's not your goal or anything, if you have a story to tell, let it out. It's very cathartic to write. There are another category that people might not think about is personal essays. I recently read Me Talk Pretty one day. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna look up Me Talk Pretty one day. I forgot. I'm old.
Your brain is going.
It is by David Sedaris, Amy Sedaris' brother. It's a collection of personal essays, and I had to put the book down. I was crying, laughing, because he was describing how he was at a party, and he did number 2, and it wouldn't flush, or something like that. Or no, I'm sorry. He walked into the bathroom, and someone else had, and he was worried he was going to be blamed for it. But just his description was hilarious, because I think we've all been in embarrassing situations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's a different podcast for a different day.
Yes.
Those stories.
I would be more than willing to share my embarrassing bathroom stories. But just think of all this great art you appreciate. Think of these video games. Think of anything you like. Someone had to overcome that fear to create it. Mm-hmm. They might never know that you appreciate it, but it brings you joy, and it's a personal goal to accomplish something. Just that feeling of accomplishment, even if you self-publish and it doesn't make a New York Times best-selling list, you have let your story out in the world. It exists. You've created something, and that, if there's like a craft I make, sometimes I like to make wreaths. Whenever I'm done making a little wreath, that I want to pat myself on the back. I've made something. This is fun. I've used my hands, and now I have something to show for it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for my personal enjoyment on my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've done so many, paintings and drawings that I don't, I mean, my wife's seen most of them, but, I have a bunch that people have never seen, and it's just something, it's kind of relaxing for me to do that kind of stuff. I haven't done much in the last couple of years. It's the writing thing, right? Like I haven't done as much as I would like to, but it's still in me. Like when I do it, it's relaxing. It's therapeutic in some ways. But some of the stuff people just never see, and that's going to be okay, right? I mean, your first book or your first short story isn't going to ever be your best one. You just gotta start somewhere. And even with this podcasting stuff, like my first podcast was atrocious, but here we are. I tell that story a lot, but my friends, at the time I didn't even know them. I had just started a Nintendo blog, and I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't really have anybody to do it with at the time. And so I was just like, well, I'm going to write before I start my podcast, because I think people like to read stuff still, and it can kind of be like a companion piece to the podcast that I'm going to start one day. And they invited me on their podcast to talk about what I was writing, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want a podcast. Maybe I should practice podcasting before I start a podcast. And they were very nice, and we're still friends to this day, although I don't really talk to them as much as I would like. And Josh and Jamie, I'm sure they listen to the shows most of the time. I'm sure they don't catch every episode, but they're very, very nice people. And I'm not gonna lie, that episode I was on, I'm surprised they didn't just quit their podcast that day. It was bad. It was bad. It's called the Life of Gaming Podcast. I was on episode 3, and then 3 or 4 months later, they invited me back on to talk about my podcasts, and by then I was way more comfortable podcasting. And sometimes I still get nervous podcasting, and I've been doing it for so long. So like these 1v1 shows are very intimidating to me, because it's like you get in a groove with our other shows, the normal shows, where we kind of like have inside jokes and we talk about stuff that's happening in the world. We're not really like learning about each other. I mean, we are in a roundabout way, but actually sitting down, with you and MJ and John Tyler Starr and Delvin Cox and all these people, all these amazing people that we've interviewed over the last few months when we started this show, it's intimidating, and Ed is obviously very, very good at that. That's what his podcast is. His Optional Opinion podcast is that it's his solo show, but he also interviews people, and that's what his whole thing is. And he's way more comfortable at it than I am. So like these last 2 nights have been very difficult for me personally, because I don't do this a whole lot, and interviews are kind of like, you never know how they're going to go, and especially like we've had a podcast before, but especially last night, like I had never talked to her in person at all, and I listened to the quiz show, Another Zelda Podcast, to try to get like a vibe, but you never know until you start talking to somebody. And I'm sure you probably felt that way on Nintendo Pow Block, the episode that you were on a couple weeks ago, like just kind of jumping in with, I mean, me and Ed aren't exactly the easiest people to just jump right in after.
It was fun though. I like seeing people passionate about things, because you can see it everywhere. People are so quick to be angry. Sometimes I think there are things people want to be, they're seeking anger, and there's a lot going on in the world to be angry about, but
yeah,
there's also so much to be happy about, and I can't change the entire world, but I look at what can I control? What I can't control how other people react, but I can control how I treat people. I can control how I react. I can control my life to an extent, and there's a time to be angry, there's a time to be upset, and it's justified. But there are also times to rejoice. There's also times to appreciate, to enjoy. And this is on a personal note, but 2019 was incredibly rough. We lost 5 people, and 5 loved ones, including my maternal grandfather that I grew up next door to, incredibly close, like a second father to me. Watched him deteriorate, had to go into a nursing home. I was there when he took his last breath, and I just... It puts a lot in perspective for you. Just, I mean, this is going to sound so weird. You know that older people and everyone in your life will pass away, but you don't think it's going to happen until it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it sounds so cheesy, but Link's Awakening, when I saw that little ghost in the remake, it was around the time my grandpa passed away and I was playing it, and the little ghost was looking over his house, surveying it, and it just kind of made me think, what happens to us? We don't know, so we really have to make the best of this time. You have to create. Don't be afraid to share. The expert in anything was once a beginner. That's one of my favorite quotes. Call it cheesy, call it cliche, but think about...
I mean, it's cliche for a reason, right? Like, I mean, a lot of cliches are cliche for a reason, right? Like, that's very true, nobody was born an expert,
No. Okay, so we're in our 30s. Think about how long ago it was that we were in kindergarten just learning how to write the letter A.
Right. Yeah.
Think about classes that gave you trouble, perhaps. Think about people who gave you trouble. Think about things you were scared of in school or at any point in your life. Maybe you were afraid of being on the dance team. Maybe you were afraid of trying out for first chair in band. Maybe you were afraid of trying out for the sports team. And if you don't try, you'll never know. That it's as simple as that. If you don't do something, it won't happen ever. People regret what they don't do more than what they choose to do.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite quotes. I mean, it's cheesy and really cliche and very, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Michael Jordan said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? I mean, and it's so cheesy and when you say it out loud, it sounds lame and everything, but it's true, right? Like if you don't try, you're going to miss an opportunity that you're just not going to take because you're afraid. And so, I mean, I dealt with that for a long time. I'm sure you've obviously said you've been in situations like that, and it's kind of, you just got to do it. You just got to go for it. And, you know, with writing, with podcasting, with, you know, if you want to be a photographer or an artist or make movies or something, right? Like we have, if you want to make a movie, my one friend who I used to do this stuff with a long time ago, moved out west to make movies, and he's shot an entire short film on his cell phone. And
What?
yeah, and he's like, you know, kind of moving up in that industry, and I'm very proud of him. I know we haven't talked in years at this point, but you know, I still keep up, you know, even if I don't keep in touch with my friends, I still keep up on what they're doing. And you know, that's really awesome that he gets to do that. And you know, that's how he kind of got his start. We have technology literally at the palm of our hands for everything now, you know, and
Oh yeah.
and you know, like I said, I was writing today on the notepad on my phone because I'm not lugging my laptop to work.
No. Sometimes scribbling doesn't help you understand your handwriting.
Yeah.
I deal with that sometimes, but
Yeah.
yeah, and no one else is going to live your life for you. I mean, people will encourage you. The right people will encourage you and build you up, but they're not going to write that book for you. They're not going to paint that painting. They're not going to film that movie.
Yeah. So just do it. Just dive in. Just if you have an idea, for an idea, you just write down the idea, and then with that idea, you're staring at that idea and just make little branches, make a flow chart, make a outline, whatever, you know, with that idea. And that helps you kind of, if you're like trying to write a story, right? Like make an outline, just get those ideas on paper, and then kind of once you see it written there, everything kind of will fall into place, and you'll just have a good time, and you'll be proud that you're doing it, even if you are scared. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So but that's gonna bring an end to this episode of 1v1. Celeste, thank you for spending the last almost 2 hours with me. This was
I enjoyed it. It was so much fun. I loved hearing your history and learning about your inspirations and your goals. This is what life's about. I think it's so easy to get caught in the drudgery of go to work, got responsibilities, got to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point if you don't have something that you look forward to?
Yeah, exactly. And these, as scary as these 1v1s are, for me at least, this is something that getting to do yours, as knowing that you were a writer, was very exciting for me. And you know, a lot of the ones that I've hosted have been really exciting, and having that outlet to talk about things and throw ideas back and forth, and being inspired by people that you meet randomly on the internet. Like, you know what I mean? This has been a real treat, you know, having you on, and you kind of being on the Nintendo show whenever you can be. And you're just a real treat to talk to. And I'm very happy you got to be here tonight.
I'm incredibly humbled, Corey, and you did great. It felt like a natural conversation. Don't be scared.
No, I mean, you know, it's just kind of like that stage nerves when you gotta shake it out, and kind of, you know, people say break a leg, you just go out there and kind of do it. You know, once you're in it, you're in it. It's happening. So, but you know, just kind of thinking about these shows the last couple of days, and it on top of the schedule that somehow I've put myself in the last this week, is just kind of, you know, it's been a kind of a stressful week in terms of scheduling stuff, but just kind of sitting down and finally talking to you about writing and inspiring me to do more and everything. You know, I when I tweeted it out, I meant it. You know, I've met you and MJ have been super inspiring to me this last couple days, and just kind of reinvigorating my love for writing and creating characters and worlds, and you know, that's what I'm gonna do. So thank you. I really appreciate it. Why don't you kind of remind everybody where they can find you at if you want them to follow you?
Oh, well, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at FairyCrypt, FairyCrypt. So if you like Zelda, if you like cats, if you like food, I might have something for you.
Those are three very positive things in the world. So I'm sure people will follow you. Also, if you are listening or watching this episode, her links are in the description of the episode. So it'll be one click away for you to go follow her. So so you can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me on Corey HD on Mixer and Twitch. You can find me on a plethora of content here on Boss Rush Games. Like I said earlier, Celeste, this has been a real pleasure to talk to you tonight, and I hope sometime in the near future we can do this again and give people more inspiration as well. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for making time for me. I know it's a busy week for you.
Yeah, well, I gotta make time for people who are awesome, and people deserve to hear their voices. So, I want to
your voice too. Your voice, people deserve to hear it as well.
Yeah, people have heard enough of me, I think. So, but anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, share, rate, and review our podcast. And Boss Rush Games is all about playing games, but we're also about being better. So be better to your friends, your peers, your colleagues, and everybody needs a little bit of positivity right now. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, we love you. Goodbye.